An eargasm of learning and a no-fuss show. Welcome to the Creative Talk Podcast, where you can learn straightforward topics about branding, digital entrepreneurship, online business, and many more with your charming host, John Santos, along with inspiring entrepreneurs, creators, and thought leaders worldwide.
All right, let's start. Let's talk about podcasting. First question, Omid, brother, please share your question once again so that everyone that joined that did not hear your question can have an overview about it. The floor is yours, my friend. Omid, you're up.
Hey. Thank you, Jan, and hello. Woon. I asked the question about the language of podcast because English, as I am in the same boat as you and our friend, this is not my first language. Anyway, I can speak English with practice in podcast, but according to my target market, which I don't know which friend talked about it, but my niche and my market actually is uh, specific. My target is specific about business and about personal development and self-awareness, which is in business fields. And those who are in need of these kind of information to develop themselves or their businesses, the information we give, actually I give or with my friends in our company is about this. So we have two missions to launching a podcast.
Yeah,
First
Omid,
is to give.
could you ask your
Yes,
question again?
I think the
yes, yes.
question is whether to create a podcast in his native language or continue creating a podcast in an English based language,
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly.
Kaboom. Woon, the floor is
Your
Yeah,
yours.
English is fine.
yeah, exactly.
Your,
I think the bigger question is sort of like who do you want to nurture in your community? Because if you want to have an English audience, then it's a much bigger global audience, right? And if that is what you're passionate about, that's who you want to, share your content with, then you should have an English podcast. But if you want to have a more local community, then you need to tailor your content to to your local community. So it's a very different audience, and so you gotta be able to know longer term what you're looking for. And yeah, so that's kind of the short answer, but I think it comes back to who you want to serve with respect to your community, because ultimately, if you are wanting to have a bigger audience, the global audience, then you want to have a sort of podcast that's outside of, is it India, right? Like where you are?
It's Iran, Persia.
Oh, sorry. Um, yeah, so then I guess that's kind of the big question, because obviously I know a lot of people who are, who are from different countries, and they also attract people. So for instance, Iranian outside of Iran, right? So you still can have that audience, but it's just in English, right? So that's kind of that's how I would do it. You just got to understand that
Yeah,
with
thank you.
English
But
you have a much bigger audience.
can I add something to the question? One, I wanted to know if adding subtitle, as good as talking actually in English. If subtitle is good enough, I'm gonna go with native.
So subtitle, this comes down to which platform are you talking about, right? So if it's just a podcast, we tend to only focus on the audio. So you need to choose your language from that point of view. But when it comes to repurposing to other platforms, then definitely do it, right? Like if it's YouTube or if it's Instagram, it's highly visual, so you need to if you can do it. And obviously subtitling takes a bit of time, takes a bit of money, but it drives audience, right? It helps you create that audience on those platforms. So it's important. Yeah, and it allows you to sort of, it frees up your time as well in some ways, because if you just focus on creating the original content, you can have other people involved in your podcast in helping you to repurpose that content, sort of put subtitles on it, and you to reach a wider audience from there.
And I think, Omid, this is what our friend here, Adam, shared a while ago. You know, before you jump into creating content or starting a podcast, you really need to have a clear vision of who your market is, you know, who your consumers would be, where will you build that tribe, where will you see them, who are they in the first place. Because if you have that in check, then your question will be automatically answered. So if your audience, your tribe, your message is connected to that tribe that is located in your country, your region, then by all means, you can really create a podcast, your content using your native language. But if you found out that your message is connected to a wider range of market, wider range of consumers outside the country, then you should by all means utilize an international language. Then that's one of them is English. A perfect example for that is myself. I'm a Filipino. I speak English is not my first language, but the tribe that is around me is outside the Philippines. So it's funny, I rank very low in the Philippines, but I rank number 100, number 60 in Ireland, Scotland, things like, countries like that. So that is something that you can really put into consideration. Plan, very important is planning, so that you can have an overview of your market, the people that will consume the content that you create. All right, Ahmed?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, precious information. Thank you very much.
Love that precious information. You remind me of the Lord of the Rings. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ahmed. Love you, man. All right, next we have the legend. Wait. Before we give the next question, we have another legend in the room. The amazing. See, I'm copying him because he's just a celebrity. I love this person. I miss him. We had a quick meeting because he just came back from a long vacation. The awesome Pete Cohen is in the house. Whoop whoop. Please introduce yourself, my brother.
Thank you so much, Jan. Happy, beautiful day to you and to my brother Woon, who was just in our meeting before. I'm extremely fortunate that I work with Jan and Woon. They're a part of our team in what we do. I am the people's coach. That's who I'm known as, the coach of the people, specializing in helping people really understand their future self and who they could actually bring into this world. I've been in the podcast game. My podcast is 6 years old in April, and we've just renamed the podcast, and we're rebranding it. Our whole rebranding, that's what I work with Jan. I've been working with Jan now for about 8 months. When I started working with him, we had 4,000 followers on Instagram. We've now got 20,000 plus. We have really good engagement. We've really looked at all of our branding and our positioning and everything we do. I've been working with Woon on my podcast now for a couple of years. He's one of the best people in the game of podcasting because it's a game, right? Ultimately, I think we all know everything is a game, and how we play in the game. This is something that my good friend Mary Stedman, who's also in the podcasting game, said this morning in my room about playing the game. So if you want to play the audio revolution and you want to play it well, I would always encourage everyone to kind of really look at it. And as Jan just said, what is it? Who is your podcast aimed at? And just get some help, because this is what this room is all about. There's this little nuances, there's all these little things. In fact, Woon just came back to me today and just said, hey, listen, I've just been looking at a few things that we need to adjust, we need to change, because we want to get in the top 10. I'm number 123 in the UK at the moment. I have been number 6. I'm in the top 1.5% of podcasts in the world. And I've only just got started. We've got nearly 400 episodes. And I just love all things podcasting. So thanks a lot, Jan. Back to you, my friend.
Woo, woo. Oh yeah, I just want to say, guys, we just had an analytic report, and Pete got like 100,000 plus reach from a clip. Only highlights, the reels that he released connected to his podcast, and we have another clip that is 500,000 views, and another clip on TikTok that is on its, again, this is very fast moving, so the last that I checked, it's 250,000 views already. Guys, he is amazing, and the reason why he's achieving those kinds of reach and those kinds of engagement, because I think this is the answer to what Amid's question a while ago. You know your message, you know the people around you that will consume that message, and that's where the transformation begins. That's why he's called the people's coach, because he knows what message to be shared, and he knows the people that needs that. That's where you make a connection, that's where the magic begins. Did you agree, Pete? Silence means yes. Well, do you agree, Woon? Save me.
No, I do.
Oh, there you go. He was on mute. He was on mute.
I had wet fingers because I'm washing up, and the wet finger wouldn't allow me to unmute. So I agree totally with what you said, but there's just one element. It's all to do with the team. Clubhouse has given me the opportunity to connect with some awesome people, and I'm only as good. The reason I have the success that I have is because I work with you, Jan, I work with you, Woon, and a few other people who aren't in the room at the moment. This is a team effort. I never work alone. I never walk alone either. Thank you.
Love you, man. Love you. Love you. All right. We'll go to the next question that came from another legend. Matt, please share the question once more so that everyone can hear it and our experts here can really ponder on how to help you with that question. The floor is yours, Matt.
Yeah, hi. Again, welcome, Pete. Good to see you here this morning. My question was, Woon, my question was this. I'm about to start a podcast, and I'm curious as to know, through experienced podcasters, is there just one location, or do you have more than one? For example, some of the time I can transfer myself to London. I could be in my office and I can spend as much time as I want down there. And then I can be at home for as much time as I want to be at home. My thing about podcasting is, I get there needs to be structure. I understand that. But there's also that element of spontaneity, which especially from myself, that if I find the sudden urge to record something, is it best to have places set up in both ideally, or is it okay to transfer? Is it easy to pick up equipment, etc.? Because I have not got that experience. Is it the sort of thing you carry around with you, or do you have things set up in location A and location B? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to how mobile you want to be in terms of your setup, and how much of an audio quality you need your podcast to be. But I guess and as well as your budget, right? You can get really expensive mics and they're not very mobile, but then you get good audio quality, right? So if you want to be prioritizing your flexibility, there are definitely mics that are less than £100, and you can easily plug it into your laptop and it just starts recording. And that's the mic. There are a couple of mics out there that are sort of less than £100, and it's flexible enough for you to be fairly mobile. And you can also, obviously, if you have an internet connection, it means you can record an interview as well, right? So if you need to be recording an interview, it's fairly straightforward, and you don't need a lot of equipment to do that. And I even know people who are recording just straight into the mobile phone, right? So it's obviously not the best audio quality, but it still gets your audio into an audio format. And ideally, you want to do some editing as well. But um, yeah, you know, so it comes down to your budget, how much you want to polish the quality, and then how, how flexible you are. But also, the other factor that I think affects a lot of your consideration is how technically savvy you are, right? Because I know people who are fairly technical and they can quite easily, manage it, and there are others who can't handle it, and so they really need a lot more hand holding and a lot more, I guess, a lot more private support on that. But I think it comes down
Private
to,
support. I love that.
yeah, because I think it's easy, right? But it's easy to say yes, it's doable. But then when it comes down to it, like, clicking a button here, it's a bit like me. I'm here in Malaysia. I used to live in the UK, right? So now I'm here in Malaysia. I'm helping my mom use her laptop, right? And I'm telling her, oh, this is how you use a mouse. If you move this mouse, the cursor moves, right? So it depends on how technically advanced you are, right? So so there are some, obviously, some level of technical standards you need to meet. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Thank you. Now, quick question on the back of that is, because we're talking about microphones, is there a specific microphone that you would suggest that would counteract a perfectly sound room? So, for example, if I was in a room that wasn't 100% adequate for podcast sound space, would there be a microphone that could compensate some of that moving forward?
Yeah, so um, there's a mic that I recommend most people to use. It's the name of the brand is called Samson. Then the model is called Q2U. Samson Q2U. And actually, I'm gonna type it in the chat. Uh, so this particular mic. So this particular mic is the one that I'm referring to, and the good thing about it is that you don't need to be in a, what you call, a sound treated room. So, and it's fairly easy to sort of just plug into a laptop or a desktop, because it's got a, what you call, a USB connection. And yeah, so it allows you to record straight away.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, thanks for that. I've just got some feedback as well from the room, which is great, saying that they've already bought one and they're really pleased with the experience. So yeah, thanks for that, Woon. Much help. Cheers.
Nice. Thank you, Matt. Also, just in addition to what Woon said, in terms of microphone, um, there's two types of microphone for, podcasting, but not just for podcasting. It's been in events long before, and some, advertising. So we have like the dynamic mics and the condenser mics. The reason why this is very important to understand is this connects to what you ask about if you have, not well sound treated room. So, in a very shallow perspective, condenser mics, they're the ones that are more natural and they're more surround. So whenever you move around, it still catches the audio. There's no difference in audio levels, meaning it's not a good choice if you have untreated sound room, because it picks up the noise, unless you have, audio interfaces and media boxes to counter that. But on the other hand, we have the dynamic mics dynamic mics are the classic choice when it comes to broadcasting, and that's the reason why when you hear people on the radio, on the news, they have like a basic tone, the same sound. It's because they use a dynamic mic. On the contrary to condenser, the dynamic mic is focused in front of the speaker. It has very less pickups behind it or around it. So you're speaking in front of the mic, so that accepts the audio, the sound that comes from you. Whatever sound you have behind or nearby, around, it gets it less. Well, depending on the sound. So if you have a not so treated sound room or office, the best choice for that to get lower noise is an dynamic mic. And then there's a lot of models, cheap models, affordable models for dynamic. Also, there are also affordable condenser mics. All right, just I don't want to be technical, but if you are really investing money in your podcasting journey, things like this could really come in handy. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, I think that Jan, you raised a really good point around the difference between the dynamic and the condenser mic. So it comes down to how much you want to invest in a studio environment. And from my experience working with most podcasters are at home, and at least for people who are starting out, you want to get started recording your content. And so that's why I recommend that model, Samsung Q2U, which is really a dynamic mic, and it's really not expensive. Uh, but the added advantage is that it's also easy to connect to your laptop, to your desktop, because if you Google, just podcast mics, there are a lot of mics out there that come out, and um, if you don't know the difference between the condenser and the dynamic, you might get one and then realize actually it's not as good, the audio quality, as they claim, because there are cheap mics out there that claim to be podcast mics that really don't deliver, mainly because you need to be in a sound treated room to make the most of
Love
it.
that. Love that. Yeah, nice. Well, hope we gave you some help there, Matt.
Yeah, fantastic. No, thank you so much. Yeah, just really excited to get my new toys.
Oh yeah. Take a picture and post it on Instagram. I'm excited as well. Next, we have another question from JK. JK, the floor is yours. Please share your question. I believe you have two, like you mentioned earlier. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much. Yes, I had an extra sneaky question. Also, to Matt for his question, it has me rethinking my whole setup, and if I actually need to buy another mic, but I won't. But thanks for for that. So my question was that, and now that Pete's in the room, I don't even want to say anything because he's going to really hold me accountable to this.
Oh, yes.
Is that I'm working on a podcast which I've been working on for a year in my mind, and now it's really time to just go. So what I want to know is, first question, do I need to have multiple episodes ready before I launch the podcast? That's one question. And the second question is that in the lead up to launching the first podcast, should I sort of like take some time to do some like promo and stuff? And how many weeks in advance would you recommend? Okay, so that was a bit more than two, another sneaky one. So thank you very much in advance.
Hi, JK. Yeah, I think the short answer is, because if you've been thinking of a podcast for over a year, like, you should get your podcast recorded and and just launch. That's kind of my feeling. But the ideal situation would be to give yourself a month and promote it before your first episode goes out. And this kind of applies to most people, but I think if you have a few episodes up and running, then when someone checks out your podcast, then you have more than one episode up, and so it means that they have more than one episode to listen from, and it gives people an idea based on the titles of those episodes what type of podcast you have, and so it helps people to understand whether this is a podcast they want to follow and what type of content you're producing. So if you have 2 or 3 episodes, that would be better. But if you don't have any episodes, then obviously one is better than zero, right? So yeah. So if you have 3 episodes, 2 to 3 episodes up and running, then sort of do weekly or sort of bi-weekly podcasts after that. That would be the ideal situation.
Okay, got you. Thank you very much. And as it's taken me such a long time to get started, I might as well wait another month. So thank you.
All right.
I didn't hear that.
Now block your ears, Pete. Block your ears.
Crazy, but love that. Also, if you have like if you're starting a podcast and you have like 3, 6, or even 12, podcast episodes prepared, it will really help you. Because it will act like a buffer, a buffer for you to create newer episodes, either interviews or solos like Pete. So it really will help you in your podcast journey. But again, it really depends on how you plan your podcast. If you're aiming 1 episode per month, then that's a lot of buffer for you. But if you're aiming to release like Pete here daily, now then that's a different gameplay and really hard work. So thank you, JK, for that question. Next we have Dr. Roberto. You have a question. Please share it once again so that everyone can have an overview of your question and they can chip in. More knowledge, more wisdom, more learning. The floor is yours, Dr. Roberto.
Thank you very much, Jan. And hi, Pete. Good to see you. I was missing you. So welcome to your own room. Jan, thank you very much for this space. My question was, I'm starting with my podcast very soon. I will launch in the next 2 months, I believe, or even sooner than that. I recorded already a number of interviews and I'm editing the sound now. I'm just enjoying this process. Now, this is how it will go, or at least this is how it goes in my head. I'm starting with one idea and one style and a format. And most probably, I'll feel at some point that I could do better by changing some things. As I'm learning, I will discover things and I will learn things and I will want to change some bits. So as I'm building up my podcast brand and presence and all this stuff, how can I manage these changes so as not to affect my brand negatively?
Woon?
He's
Yeah.
thinking.
So
I killed him. Oh, sorry.
yeah, no, I think it really depends on what you are trying to achieve longer term, right? It comes down to who you want to build your audience, your podcast for, and the type of community you want to create. And sometimes it's actually better to start off small and then grow to a bigger audience, right? So I mean, Pete is a good example, right? Pete's podcast, we are kind of in the middle of pivoting it from the My 365 podcast to the Future Self podcast, and there's no, and he's still in the personal development space, and he's still there around being the people's, what do you call it? People's coach, right? So you see, he's not pivoting in the sense like he's not changing who he is, but his podcast obviously is kind of just repositioning it slightly from the name and probably possibly in the content and the narrative in terms of what he wants to talk about, but it doesn't mean that he's changing who he is, right? So it's not a complete change of his brand, right? So I think there's there are many ways to think of this, but the way I would suggest you to think of it is that there are three levels of branding. So there's personal brand. So this is kind of relating to who you are and how people connect with you. And then there's what you call your product brands. So these are the products that you have, that you're selling and people buying your services or your expertise. And then there's what you call your company brand. And you need to think about these three levels of branding and how your podcast sits relative to your personal brand or your company brand or your product brand. And each of these types of brands have different communities attached to it. And how do you want to use your podcast to drive traffic to it, right? So this is kind of touching to branding, but I think it's super important to know who you are trying to address this podcast for, the type of content you have, what type of problems are you solving for your audience, who are you inspiring when you're sort of sharing your message. So think about that, and then and the other thing maybe you might not have considered is that the size of the audience tends to be much bigger than your customers, right? Your sort of clients that you work with. So you want an audience that is much bigger for your podcast than the niche that you're in. So that's kind of a few tips there that could potentially help you. So in terms of the change, from a technical point of view, you will still keep the back end of the podcast, but you can change the name of the podcast. Or alternatively, you can create a brand new podcast and drive traffic to that podcast. So those are options available for you if you are pivoting in the future. But definitely don't let that to be something that stops you from launching.
That's wonderful one. Thank you very much. Lots of value here. Cheers.
Love that, Woon. You're a branding coach now.
Yeah.
Let me add on that, Dr. Roberto. So, branding is different from brand. All right. So, the modification that is needed in let's he mentioned Pete, and we're working on Pete's branding. So, the change that is done on Pete is the branding, not the brand. The brand stays the same. He's Pete Cohen, and what he's the people's coach, and what he does, he helps transform people's lives. Now the branding, that's where the modification comes into play. That's where the like what Woon said, the assets, the artworks, the technicalities are geared towards a different market with a different style, with a different vibe. That's the branding. So in the journey of a brand, the branding is not static. It's fluid, meaning there's always certain aspects, certain situations, certain points in that journey that it will really innovate or change, or a modification is needed. But to change the brand, that is a different level. There are times that the brand is needed to be changed. That's the reason why we hear famous names that undergo a rebrand. But most of the time, it's used in a different context. When branding is being changed, they think that the brand is being adjusted, but it's in fact it's only the branding. All right. So a good example of what Woon said about starting in terms of podcasting is Pat Flynn. He has his solid brand, but because the branding has its different courses and different messages, he created different podcasts accordingly. So you can see a Pod Flynn podcast about courses. So the branding is geared towards him as a teacher in doing masterclasses. And there's another podcast, him focusing on lead generation and sales. So that's a different aspect of his messaging. So that's another branding for the same Pat Flynn, who is an expert in podcasts, which is his brand. All right. So hope that helps, Dr. Roberto.
Super, super, super clear. And I love this differentiation you make between brand and branding. I wasn't confounding them, but you stated so clearly that now resonates a lot in my head positively. I can change my approach to marketing, to branding, and all this stuff. And the brand is still the same. I'm still the same person. I still want to give the same impression and project the same image, if you like. So, yes, I love this idea. Thanks for sharing it.
Absolutely right. You said it right. Better than me. Thank you, thank you. I love that. Well, yes, it's true. You can change the branding according to your tribe or something connected to your message, but it will always be connected to who you are as a brand, your core. Intent comes before content. Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Next, we have the last, if I'm not mistaken, who raised the question. My brother Sanusi, the floor is yours. Please share your question once again. Still here with us, Sanusi? I am summoning you.
If he's not, I have a question.
The brave and the bold, Felicia. All right, so we will get back to Sanusi later. Felicia, please introduce yourself and what you do first, and then share your question. The floor is yours, my
Thank you
dear.
so much. The brave, the bold, and the beautiful. Right? It sounds like
Oh, yes, I
a
love
soap opera.
that.
That's a soap opera somewhere. Good morning. So happy to be here. My friend Pete, I have not talked to you in so long, but I've had like a hiatus for personal reasons. But long and short, really enjoying this topic because I have a podcast and I want to be like Pete when I grow up. So when I heard you all say he's in the stratosphere of marketing and number six, that's where I'm at. I have my podcast. The name of my podcast is A Purpose Driven Woman. And I launched that podcast 3 years ago as a result of having a conference with the same namesake. I just felt at that point, okay, now after pondering what makes sense, that made sense because I wanted to just basically continue the conversation from that conference, A Purpose Driven Woman Moving Beyond Fear to Faith. And long and short, it started with just an interest, and it's ironic you brought up Pat Flynn because that is the person that when I started my research of a podcast friend, should I say, who I was admiring at the time, gave me his information. And I literally went to his YouTube channel and watched the steps on, and that's how I launched my podcast. So if anyone needs basic steps, that is what I did. He literally had the checklist. But long and short, I just feel, what you just said really, I probably have too many questions, but I'll just try to narrow it down. I have branded my podcast, of course, A Purpose Driven Woman. And I also am in the midst of a sort of rebranding. So brand, I love the way you just pointed that out because the name of even the reason why all this got started was the name of my book, You Are Your Brand, Building from the Inside Out. So my focus is personal development and professional growth. And I started this podcast as a result of providing those resources to women in a safe space through online and offline platforms. And of course, the offline platform was my conference, and that led to the podcast and eventually a book project with some women. But I just want to know, yeah, I'm almost in. I was in a room that's talked about a podcast makeover, and now we're talking about marketing. My question would be, how I really need to come back. As far as I want to relaunch my podcast, what would you say is the difference between relaunching, like how much lead time and all of that? Because right now, it's of course today is the first day of March. This is Women's History Month, and I already have some guests, but I was considering relaunching it with women, some women in history, women leading in history kind of episodes. But long and short, where do I go from here? I want to grow this podcast. It's kind of like a baby. I don't want to let it go. I've been asked to rebrand the name and all that, but I still feel like I still like what I've done, A Purpose Driven Woman, although I also include men as guests. What would you say is the biggest difference between makeover and a rebrand because I think I need to relaunch really what I'm doing, but I'm not sure how what that looks like versus just a because what I was told about a makeover, hey, you just maybe want to change this, that, or the other, your intro song, or this or that. But I really want this podcast to be in a position to go way further and reach a larger segment. And I will turn it back over to you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Sure, thank you, Felicia. So, the question is, that goes beyond podcast because we're touching on branding already. Your brand, and we have another session on Clubhouse this Thursday. Let's talk about branding. So that's a perfect room for this. But since you're here and you raised that question, personally, as a branding and identity coach, I, the last card for me is a rebrand. As much as possible, I don't want my clients, my partners to do a rebrand because for me that's a total overhaul. That's you should have like a, I'll give you an example just to grasp what I'm coming from. Before, the main reason to do a rebrand is because this celebrity was he was a rising star, but he hit a really scandalous thing. So in order to salvage the name, that's where the rebrand comes into play. All right, and then another thing is to relaunch a product that is coming from to cover up the shadow of that product before. A rebrand is needed in order for it to rise again. So the focal point of the tribe and the new consumers would be on the new one and not the story of before. So for me, unless it's like that, I am not an advocate of a rebrand. We always focus on the branding. Change in the branding, modification in the branding, adjustment in the branding. But as far as I'm concerned, if we can manage those, we don't need for a rebrand. It's not bad. It's just my perspective as a branding and identity coach. And we have a lot of opinions, a lot of experience in this aspect. All right. So focus first on what we can do in the in the branding, in the modification of the branding. Why do you need a modification? What for? Who for? And we can really make an overview of how it affects your main brand. Because I'm sure before doing a rebrand, there's a lot to do in the branding. So again, brand is you. You are the brand. So there's only one you. And we all have a brand. We all are the brand. So it's not easy transforming that. Hence, you are an expert. You already created something. You are already out there. So as much as possible, I'm an advocate of keeping that intact. Change, modify, innovate the branding. But the brand, that's a different story.
I love that. I mean, I've never heard it so clear because I think that is so true. And my only reason, I'll be very honest with you, that's why terminology and knowledge is power. Because my thinking of rebranding was because of the fact that I felt like, okay, is a purpose driven woman just that title? Is that hemming me up for only working with women? Because my tagline in 2020 was I help women build their brand by connecting to their purpose. So in my mind, do I need to rebrand now to include men? Because ultimately, my core start was you are your brand, building from the inside out, which is a universal book and a universal approach. So that was really my only reason for reconsidering this whole rebrand. So I did have someone, they literally kind of got all of these collateral pieces together. But in my heart of hearts, honestly, I just couldn't. I'm like, I'm not ready to let everything go that I created. And that's because it's me. It's just what you said. It's what I created and what started the whole movement in the first place. So we cannot abandon everything. So I really appreciate that. And I think that is the approach I need and I need help with. I'll turn it back over.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Felicia.
so let me quickly
Sure, sure.
mention a few things, right? So you mentioned you are a fan of or follower of Pat Flynn, right? So just to illustrate the point, right? Pat Flynn is Pat Flynn, and he's who he is, right? So he's got a personal brand that's all branded around Pat Flynn, right? So if you followed him long enough, you know he's done a lot of things that's under his own name, right? So there's FlynnCon, which is this conference where you go to his event, right? And there's obviously a podcast called Ask Pat, which is really around his community, where he asks his community questions and he answers the question, right? So that's a podcast in itself. But he's not changing his name, right? So that's the thing. So the personal brand is really around Pat Flynn. But then when you look at his products or his community or his company, he's got what he calls smart passive income. And so smart passive income is really his blog that he started. And he didn't just pivot or change, right? So what he did was he turned his podcast and then he realized, oh, there's this new thing called podcasts. And so he's going to start a smart passive income podcast. And that was obviously over 10 years ago. And so that's how he pivoted, right? So is there a change in audience? Yes, there's a people that are listening to his podcast could be very different from the people that are reading his blog posts, right? But that's not a big change, right? That's like most of the content is still very similar. He's still who he is. He still represents, helping people get online, making money online, right? And so from that point of view, he's not changed his personal brand, but he's changed his product brands, right? So and then now if you look at how he operates his companies, he's got a lot of different companies, but one of them is Flynn Industries, right? So if you look at his company, it's under his name, right? Because he is very much around his personal brand. But if you look at, just to give you another example, right? Say Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk is Tesla's founder, right? SpaceX founder. But he's got lots of different products.
What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we're going to break down Valorant patch 4.04. And this patch is freaking crazy. We have rework and changes to a whole bunch of characters, huge nerfs to Viper and Astra, huge buffs to Brimstone and Omen, and a brand new Rush meta potentially, Icebox changes, and Yoru is being added into the patch. So there's a lot we got to talk about. There's a lot we got to go over, and I am freaking hyped. But first, let me tell you about this insane tool.
But it's from a technical point of view, from a podcast point of view, if you do a rebrand, which is what Jan is suggesting, a rebranding, it's much easier because it means that you can keep your existing RSS feed, you keep your existing followers and subscribers from your podcast. Hopefully that helps.
Oh, yes, it does. And I think he said brand modification. And I think that was the distinction there. But even like I was sharing in another room last week, even the aspect of the technical part of, I think once again, it gets overwhelming with all of the pieces that's involved. But once again, Pat Flynn made it so simple. I had to just do it. So I would encourage JK, you can do it because I did it. But at the end of the day, it's like it went from, oh, right, this is an amazing, I'm loving this. Never had a problem getting guests to this very day. Never have a challenge with that. But now it's about, for me, more positioning and being like Pete when I grow up. I'll turn it back over to you.
Love that. Prof. Chris is flashing, and so as JK. But before I give the floor to them, to Prof. Chris, last word connected to this topic, Felicia. To make it simple, you said it already. Your brand is you, right? Who you are, what you do, and what you offer. That intent before anything else. Intent before content, before anything else. Before your podcast, before your blog, before anything that you do, that is your brand. All right? So if that is how important, your brand is, as much as possible take care of it and really, focus on the branding is the dissemination of your message, the communication. May it be your branding can be in audio, which is podcast. Your branding could be in an illustration utilizing Instagram, things like that. So those are two different things. So you are already an amazing brand. All right, your message that is connected to who you are and what you do and what you offer is now in the process of the communication, which is the branding. So put that in heart, and if you need more help, Woon is here. I'm gonna say Jan is here. I'm here to help you and guide you in your journey towards success. It's not gonna be easy, but it's a fun ride. Thank you, Felicia. Prof. Chris, you were flashing a while ago. If you want to add something or you have a question, the floor is yours.
A bit of both, but the first thing I wanted to find out from any of the moderators is the systematic ingredients required for success. I have mentored someone that has now become a big name in podcasting, but we did it organically. We didn't think about it. We just answered a question for a set of audience. And then we took questions from that and answered another set of questions and took another set of questions. And each question literally became what you will call a title or a theme. Can someone please help me? Because we're moving into a new area and therefore assisting a new audience. What is the number one thing that can lead to success?
Right. Thank you, Prof. Chris. All right. So before I answer your question, success is relative. There's, success for Woon is different for me. All right. So I think the right approach in gearing this question is, what is your measure for success? What is success for you? It could be wide reach, like what we shared earlier, that Pete reached like 100,000, almost 1 million reach. Or is it lead generation? You can have like 2,000 followers and then it can really bring you the money. So those are different aspects of success depending on the brand. So what is the measure of success for you? What is success for you? What is the context of success? Have that clear in your podcast or in your brand journey. Then you can craft a solid question connected to success. Is it lead generation? Is it reach? Is it things like that, analytics, metrics, or anything? So craft that first. Once you have that perfect, what success means to your brand or your podcast, then you can craft a solid question and we can all chip in achieving that. Is that okay, Prof. Chris?
I already have that. It's been number one in my niche of helping CEOs become really smart CEOs.
Right.
Number one.
Okay.
In every single market, in the North American market, European market, and Asian market, because our message is life-saving.
Okay. So love that. You want to be number one in your niche. Well, first thing, be realistic. All right. So that is something that your tribe can give for you. You can only do so much as a brand. You can create powerful content with a solid message that can connect to them and benefit them as a brand, as a podcaster. You always need to think, what is it for them? Why would they consume the content that you create? Remember, a brand is not what you say it is. It is what the people say about it. It's not that you have a great idea, but it is beyond that. It should answer the void, the gap, so to speak, in marketing, why would they bother consuming your content? If you answer that, then you're one step closer in achieving to be number one. If you do, if your brand and your podcast did answer that, and you have a tribe and non-stop consuming your content, it benefits them, then be consistent. Repeat the system, produce, make it wide reach, utilize everything that you have that could amplify that message that you have for them. And you will be surprised, you will be number one. Again, it's not going to be easy. We are living in a realistic world, but this is something that is beyond you. Understand your tribe and understand your message. Connect it and have a clear vision of why they would bother consuming your message in the first place. Raj, you were flashing your mic. The floor is yours, my friend.
Hi, Jan. No, I was just flashing in appreciation, and I was agreeing with you. I was just clapping. But yeah, I think the main point is that what does it mean to you for being number one as well? Because that's what you got to ask yourself the question. Apart from leveraging clients and basically having the, so to speak, I'm going to put in inverted commas, bragging rights. What does it mean for you to be number one? I think first and foremost, I think it's value. And like Jan said, is the core message and the core principle of that message. What are you offering your audience? And like Jan said as well, Jan said everything I'm going to potentially repeat is that what are they going to get from your podcast as well? What are they going to learn from it? What are they going to achieve from it? And I think those are the core messages. And we live in a very competitive world now. The online spectrum has become so paramount that everyone is fighting for that one piece of attention, and you've got to really stand out and provide something that somebody needs right now. And I think that if you can find that, right, that will then give you some kind of leverage. I mean, look, like, to be fair, I'm an award-winning agency, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to get every client to sign on the dotted line every time I speak to them. That doesn't necessarily mean the case, because I want to be able to offer something that somebody else can offer them, So you got to look at it on that standpoint as well. But over to you, Jan, my brother. I didn't want to take over too much, but you are absolutely correct in what you're saying. So over to you, bro.
Thank you, Raj. You are a legend as always. I hope that helped you, Prof. Chris.
Yes, I hate to come back to this, but this is what it offers to them. And we've done a trial run, and nobody is addressing this key issue with leaders and business leaders. That's why we have divorce. That's why we have mental health problems, because no one looks at emotional intelligence of those that are quote unquote business successes. If you're a business success, it comes at a great price. It doesn't have to if you have the fundamentals if you have the fundamentals right. And that's the reason why we have to be number one in the world. It's a life-saving, no ego. We don't want to be number one because we want to brag about it. We want to be number one because we want every single management person to receive the missing tool that has led to suicide and led to divorce and led to disease. I'm done speaking.
Yeah, let me share my thoughts, right? So I think what Jan and what Prof Chris, what you guys were saying is really that for you, you want some steps around becoming that number one podcast for your audience. Am I right in thinking that's what you're saying?
Was that for me or Prof. Chris?
I think I'm trying to understand Prof Chris' objective, or rather the goal that he has for his
Yeah, I
podcast.
think the goal is, it's an audacious goal to be number one. Every brand's dream is to be top of something, right?
I think from what I understand, Prof. Chris just said that it's not that he wants to be the number one podcast, but I think he wants to be the number one podcast for his audience, right? So I think that is kind of what you are saying.
Absolutely, because we did a book. It's on Amazon and it's been on almost every list. And the contents of that book, smart CEO execution. has led to the salvation of their personal relationships, has led to salvation of the way they see things, rather than going for the cutthroat, high number business success at the expense of their
Yeah,
relationship.
so Prof. Chris, right? So let me suggest, right? So I think what you're trying to do is really have more impact with your podcast. And so you want to be measuring, what that means for you. Does it mean that there's higher level leaders in your audience? Does it mean that you're reaching out to more on different audience over time? And how does it work? What does success look like in terms of the impact of your podcast content? Are you getting positive reviews? And how many reviews are you getting? What type of content are they looking for? I think these are the sort of criteria that you're looking to have when you're planning out your podcast and planning out your individual episodes.
Actually, that's a very powerful thing that you mentioned, Woon. Testimonials, right? And reviews. That is a tangible element, Prof. Chris, that you can really leverage. If you have reviews and testimonials, I mean, that's another step closer to being number one in your niche or in your brand. So highly create testimonials. When I say create, ask your tribe, which you already have, to participate in reviews, testimonials, and rankings. So that really helps. And plus, having those testimonials, those reviews, can really give you an overview of, are they happy with your messaging, are they really connecting, or what they want more out of your brand or your podcast or your content. So thank you for that, Woon. Thank you for that question, Prof. Chris. We are about to close the room, so we will be starting the promotion. If you have social media, events, your podcast, your brands, anything you want to promote, let's start on the last two.
Yeah. Let me jump in before
Sure.
before Jay. Right? So I've just shared a link in the chat. So if anyone's interested in any webinar on podcasting, we run regular webinars, and the next one is next Monday around how to become leading learner, which really, how do you leverage your podcast to network with the best, with the biggest and the best, and so you become an instant leader, right? And then we also have introduction to podcasting. So it's a live webinar. I'll be there, and if you're interested, I will be there to help you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Woon, for promoting. I highly suggest, guys, that you connect with Woon. He can really help you guys in your podcast journey. Jay, please introduce yourself and promote anything that you have, social media accounts or releases. Your podcast. The floor is yours, my friend.
Hey, thank you, Jen. Thank you, Woon. Raj, good to see you guys. Woon, you're awesome. Definitely sign up for that webinar. Woon has helped me get my podcast into the top 1.5%. And it's just been an awesome ride. My name is Jay. I'm a speaker, podcaster, creator, and host of Don't Touch My Mindset. And you guys can follow the show, follow me on Instagram, man. That's where I'm most active. That's where I'm putting in the most work. That's where I'm doing the most promotions. Or you can just go to don'ttouchmymindset.com, check out all the podcasts, check out the hoodies, check out all the stuff we got coming up. Super, super awesome. Prof. Chris, consistency. Can't get to number one with one episode. Consistency. If you're going to put out something, put it out every single time that you can. Sustainability, consistency, brother, I believe is the number one tool to get you to number one. Thank you, Jan and Woon, to get there.
Kaboom! Love you, Jay. Full support. Next, we have another regular in this family. Annika, please introduce yourself and promote any social media accounts you have and your podcast.
Whoop whoop! Thank you, brother.
I'm gonna license that. It's gonna be a trademark now. Include that in my branding.
Yes. Your trademark. I know, that's why I saying whoop whoop. Okay. First of all, sorry, I'm busy with my podcast. I'm doing editing on my next podcast. Maybe released tomorrow or day after tomorrow, because I'm working on that. And second, my pod, I'm a brand from India, so my brand is I'm Indian. So and my podcast name is the Anokha Show. The name is Anokha, means unique, and I'm unique because of various things. So you can check out my podcast if you know Hindi, because I'm doing a podcast in Hindi on Spotify, so and Google Podcast, both of there. But I want to reach on. You can also reach me on Twitter. Twitter is Anokha _ Ankit. But I also there tweeting Hindi, but sometime I tweet in English. Last I tweeted on LFC Liverpool, because I'm a Liverpool fan. So there's a good number I got it. So that's all thing. Thank you very much. It's done.
Amazing. Thank you, Anuka. Guys, before I pass the floor to Felicia to promote, I send in the chat box a link and I pin it on the top area here. Grab your copy. We just released the Creative Talk magazine for the month of March issue number 2. It's 100% free. You don't need, there's no catch. We're not selling you something. It's free. This is the new subsidiary of our brand, the Creative Talk podcast. Now it's the Creative Talk magazine. We featured amazing people here. We promote personalities and brands that are familiar here on Clubhouse. Members like Pete Cohen and Melissa Curran. Guys, click the link, download your copy. It's 100% free. It's helping brands out there to get traction, to get seen in this traffic, in this digital traffic. So again, it's in the chat box and it's pinned on the top. Felicia, please promote your social media account and any releases and your podcast. The floor is yours.
Okay, good morning again. Yeah, my social media is myself at Felicia Shakespeare on Instagram. Right now, that is kind of where I'm pushing all of the anyone that wants to reach out to me or just any contacts that I make. The name of my podcast, again, is A Purpose Driven Woman Podcast. And you can find that on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all major platforms. So I'm so excited to even this weekend, I'll be releasing Women Making History series as we embark on Women's History Month. And I will say these women are not just giving messages to women, but it's really just messages for hope, messages for success, and messages to take you to your next level. One particular opening speaker, Dr. Ruth Gothian out of New York City, just released a book called The Success Factor. She's my opening guest that I'm going to launch next Friday. And she has interviewed Nobel Peace Prize winners, athletes, NBA coaches, and her book project came out on January 25th. So it's just going to be a great series. So I hope all the women and men in the room will go and subscribe, like, and comment. Thank you so much again. It was so great to be here today, and I will remain in touch.
Love you, Felicia. Please do connect with us also on Instagram so that we can, you can see more about branding, because I know I can feel the energy that you are really interested to learn more. Thank you, Felicia. Next, Prof. Chris, please promote your social media accounts and your podcast.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to share. I want to salute you for knowing that leadership carries the huge responsibility of learning. I have a special podcast that shows you how you can read 4 times, 5 times faster than your current reading rate. They call it speed reading, but this is speed learning. No unopened emails ever again in your life. No books that you bought that you couldn't read. We accelerate your learning because readers are leaders. So if you can follow me on Twitter, I will send you a list of all my speaking engagements, free workshops, free seminars. If you tap with me on LinkedIn, you'll see my recent post, because I know that we all underuse our brain. That's the reason why I invest in emotional intelligence, and makes you a far more successful person than your certificate says or your circumstances can ever deliver. And done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Chris. Annalie, please promote any social media accounts that you have and your podcast.
Hi, Jan. Thank you. So, unfortunately, I had to step away for a large part of the podcast, but thank goodness we have replays. So, I'm really going to be going back over that. I did have some questions, but I will save them for next time. So my podcast is the Sparking the Change podcast, and I will be having conversations with people who are sparking the change they want to see in the world. And I'm looking forward to interviewing many of the wonderful people that I've met here on Clubhouse and keep meeting, because we have some real movers and shakers and change makers here who are really, instead of complaining about what they think other people should be doing to make the world better, they're just going out there and they are just getting it done, sparking that change themselves. My social media, oh wow, that's the part I need to get onto now, because I need to bring that in line with my pivot. And yes, that's Jan will probably be able to know more than anybody else. That's a boatload of work that's going to have to go into that. And I think what is holding me back is that I am not 100% clear in how I want to phrase my message. So I'm going to need a bit of help with that. So, as I say, I had to step away, unfortunately. So I'm going to come back next week, and I'm going to absorb and make use of the help. And Woon, definitely going to be looking at your webinar, because I want to do this well. Yeah, you know, my dad always said, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing well. And then also, you know, you want to balance it with, you don't want to overthink things and try and be so perfect that you never get started. So I'm trying to find that happy medium, and I'm sure you guys are going to help me do that. So thank you so much for what you've done for us today, and we'll keep doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Annalie. And yes, please do connect with Woon, because I'm sure he can help you in your podcast journey. And in terms of social media and your brand, by all means, connect with me and let's see how we can, bring your brand to the next level. Thank you, Annalie. Adam, please promote your social media accounts and any releases. The floor is yours. Adam, are you there? All right. Let's get back to Adam later. Raj, please promote any releases online, social media accounts. The floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Jan. So, guys, I've got a few things coming this year. Do keep a lookout on my Instagram, especially. I've got a Pinterest guide, which is going to be the 7 tips on how to use Pinterest for your business. If that is something that you would like, all I ask is to follow these instructions. Head over to my IG and basically follow us and drop me the words or DM me the words close friends. And I'm currently building a website, and the link will be sent to only the people that are in my close friends community. And you can download it for free. Look out for my YouTube Shorts course, which is coming very soon. And tonight at 8 p.m. BST, I have a Instagram live, and we will be talking about how to promote your business on social media. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you, Raj. You are amazing as always. Appreciate your full support. Woon, anything that you want to add? Or your releases, online accounts, online social media accounts? Floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, Raj, did you say close friends?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify, did I hear it correct?
He doesn't want to type a different word. and then he was like waiting. Why am I not getting the copy? Because you type it wrong, boy.
No, the thing is, we are still currently building the website. It's taking a little bit longer than anticipated, and I'm still trying to get the right aesthetics. Plus, I'm looking for someone who can actually just design a one page. So, it's taking a little bit longer than anticipated, but it will be done soon, and I'm excited to share it with you guys.
No worries. Cool. Thank you everyone for asking all your questions, and it really helps me personally because I work with people like you guys, right? So people who are wanting to launch a podcast and share your message with podcasting, and so for me, really, if you are interested in anything else, always come back here every week, and you can follow me here on Clubhouse. Or if you are interested in my webinar, I've put in the link in the chat. And so it's woontan.com. That's my personal website, woontan.com/webinars. That's me. And what else can I share? Yeah, there's a podcast that we are hosting called YGV 100 FM. You can find the link on the Instagram link, the main link. It's really around helping entrepreneurs enter the metaverse. So there's a group of us, and John, you are actually part of the group as well.
Oh yeah.
We're
gonna do that, right? The podcast interview.
Yeah, exactly, and it's quite a fun community. We're sort of building a lot of the building blocks to help us enter this metaverse. And one of the things that I've learned running this podcast is really and part of this community is that communities are becoming more and more important, and so it's really important to have that high touch, high quality relationships with your audience. And so it's not just about having a big number of listeners, having a big number of views, right? So I think it's really around the quality of the relationships. So yeah, that's a podcast that we have, and as well as it's really a partners community that I'm part of. Jan is part of it, and it's something I'm working on as well. So if that's something of interest, obviously you can speak to me as well.
Thank you as always, Woon. And guys, do not forget to follow the club, MI365. Follow Pete Cohen because he is just an amazing human being. He's the reason why we're all connected. And support everything that our members here are promoting. Connect with them, follow them, because that's the least we can do for them investing their time, their talent, and their love. Support each other and join us again next week. Let's talk about podcasting. This is Jan Santos, your branding and identity coach. Always remember, have a positive outlook in life. Smile. God bless you all. Bye.
Thank you for being with us here on the Creative Talk Podcast. I'm your host, John Santos. Don't forget to listen and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. See you again, always.